everybody. My name is Gavin Luter. I'm with United Way of Greater Knoxville. Thanks for tuning in to Focus on Community. I have come back here to, again, talk about one of the initiatives the United Way of Greater Knoxville is undertaking right now, and that's to build community support for effective teachers, and more broadly, just building support for education across our community. We just did a show not too long ago with Tennessee Extreme Wrestling, which is a group here, one of few minor league wrestling groups. And I've also been getting out to a lot of different groups, such as the YWCA, the Boys and Girls Club, Compassion Coalition, even the district attorney's office, the attorney general's office here in town, all talking about one central thing, and that's supporting education, and specifically supporting the most important part to our education in terms of delivering the education, and that's teachers. We all know that education is all about students. It's all about making sure that kids learn. But what we also need to realize is that we all have a role to play. I think it's pretty appropriate that this show is called Focus on Community, because that's exactly what I'm here to talk about today, is how the community can look at supporting education. Now, one of the things that most recently just happened, I guess it was earlier this month, the governor, as well as Senator Bill Frist, and a bunch of groups around the state, everybody from United Ways of Tennessee to the Tennessee School Boards Association, to, goodness gracious, the Boys and Girls Club of Tennessee Valley, as well as the entire state of Tennessee, all came together to roll out one message, and that's expect more, achieve more. And expect more, achieve more is basically a public awareness campaign of the fact that we are raising the bar in Tennessee education. And what does raising the bar mean? Basically, it means it's going to be a little bit more difficult to graduate, meaning that the amount of credits that are going to be required for graduation is going to go up. But not only that, what we've done in the state of Tennessee is actually set the scores higher for something that, once I mention this to parents, they're going to know exactly what I'm talking about, proficiency levels for our students. The United States Chamber of Commerce gave Tennessee 2006, 2007 an F in truth in advertising for education. And what that means is that we were saying that our students were proficient, but what really the case was that our students really weren't measuring up well when it comes to national standards. There's the NAEP scores, which is the National Assessment of Educational Progress, and our students really, when we said they were passing, it was about a 40% proficiency level. Now, I don't know if you all think about, when you think of a passing score, when I got a 40, I never passed. That was usually an F. But what happened was that 40 was actually deemed proficient in the state of Tennessee. But all that's changing. It's going to be a little bit harder of a test. We're going to expect a little bit more, but that's because if we set the bar a little higher, then our students are going to live up to that. Most of the students that I've talked to in this project, they want a challenging education. Most of the teachers I talk to in this project, they want to be able to teach their kids rigorous things. But what happened was that the law was not necessarily in support of that, but that all changed come January, and now it's going to be a little bit harder of a test. It's going to be harder for kids to measure up to proficiency, but all that we know now is the new reality, and that's because what we think is that Tennessee really should be rising to the top in education. For a long time, Tennessee has been at the bottom of all the lists with education, but we don't need to focus on that anymore. What we need to focus on is that Tennessee education is going to be, the bar is going to be set up here, and we're hopefully going to raise to that bar, and so all of our students can now achieve more and be ready for actual careers and also going into college. What we realized was that those were out of sync. Our students weren't always ready to enter into a career right after graduation, and they weren't always ready to enter into a career even after college sometimes. But the landscape is finally changing. And what does that mean? Now it means that we all recognize these kids are going to have a harder time, parents are going to have a little bit harder of a time, and what the United Way is trying to call community organizations to the front is saying, how can we help kids meet these standards? Now you might think, gosh, what would somebody like the YWCA or what would somebody like the Boys and Girls Club have to do in actually helping our students raise the bar in education? Well, A lot of times the community partners that we work with, specifically within the United Way, oftentimes are providing after-school care to students, mentoring, extracurricular activities, but also some reinforcement of concepts that students are learning in school. So, when I started to think about this, I realized, if these kids are going to have a harder time, if the parents are going to have a harder time understanding what it is that they need to give their kids to be successful, we're going to have to start thinking outside the box. And thinking outside the box doesn't mean just putting it all on the backs of teachers, not putting it all on the backs of school systems. But what we as a United Way need to be doing is saying, how can we help specifically get these kids the skills that they need to be successful in school, to connect back with what's going on in their classroom. And so this past week, we had several events. We had a school board candidate forum where we were asking people about, we're actually asking of our elected leaders, when they are elected, do they support these higher standards? We as a community need to realize that who we're putting in office, who we're electing in office, are making critical decisions that impact the future of our children. We also held an event along with the Knoxville Chamber and the Knox County Education Association and Knox County Schools about the new teacher evaluation system, realizing that teachers are now going to be held to a higher standard. It's not just students, but it's also teachers. And I caught up with a couple of people who are from non-traditional organizations that you wouldn't first think about in terms of education reform, helping fix education. Specifically one person that I caught up with was LaKenya Middlebrook. And I asked her about community organizations and how important of a role that they play in helping students achieve these higher standards. And this is what she had to say. I was wondering if we could go ahead and roll the clip. Go ahead.
I'm LaKenya Middlebrook. I am with the YWCA Phyllis Movement Center, and we run an after-school program for middle school students. And as these new standards approach and will have effect on our students, I think that it's really important for agencies like the YWCA and other service providers that provide community service to really be active and engaged with our parents, with schools, with students, to ensure that our kids are prepared for the future and that they're ready to meet these higher expectations. It's going to be really important for us to help close the gap of what they have been learning and what they need to know so that they're prepared to move forward and be successful in life.
Great. Okay, and I should say thank you very much to LaKenya Middlebrook. I caught her off to the side. It wasn't a planned thing or anything, but I really appreciate her willingness to step up and say what she thought about groups like the YWCA making a concerted effort to get out there and connect with what kids are doing in the classroom. There are a bunch of different examples of people within the nonprofit sector, but also people not officially in the nonprofit sector that are also with businesses, and they've stepped up to specifically support education. I wanted to give you a few examples. The Boys and Girls Club of, within here in Knoxville and the Tennessee Valley, what they have done is they've actually started connecting with Knox County schools and some of their surrounding school systems to say, how can our after-school care be able to be in line with what teachers are teaching in the classroom? So aligning it with the curriculum, the Tennessee curriculum. So they have started shaping their after-school initiatives, shaping their remedial assistance that they give to students to make sure that they are connected with what the teachers are teaching in the classroom. Not only that, but they've worked out a partnership with the school system to where they can have access to online information about the students with parents' consent to know specifically what kids understand and what specifically they don't understand. And this is through online testing that teachers do in the classroom. So if I am really struggling with adding, I can tell that to the Boys and Girls Club staff member after school who's going to be doing after school tutoring with these kids to say, the addition, Gavin really doesn't understand the addition very much. Could you focus in on doing extra projects and extra homework assignments that focus in on addition? So they formulated a partnership with Knox County Schools that allow them to do that. But then they also have gotten access to what's called professional development for teachers. They've connected with Knox County Schools to say, with the skills that you're giving your teachers to develop as teachers, could we also, our staff members, get access to that type of information? So they're attending professional development sessions. So for instance, they're learning cutting edge research-based interventions with reading, or with new unique ways to teach about word problems and math, or extracurricular assignments that you can do to reinforce concepts related to physical science. Whatever the case, I mean, the individual details here aren't as important as realizing that the nonprofits are starting to think a little bit differently about how they interface with education. So that's just one example. Another example of businesses getting involved in education is that the Knoxville Chamber has recently spurred an initiative called the Data Warehousing Project, where they have helped give some of their staff, and they've also gotten for-profit, in the private sector partners to fund what's called a data warehousing project. All these different databases of information exist within the school system, like attendance, disciplinary records, the courses that they take, the TCAP scores that the students get. They all exist out there, but they all exist in different places. And so this data warehousing project has brought all these data sources together into one place to make it easier for teachers so that they don't have to spend a lot of groundwork going around and finding all these different sources of information. So the Knoxville Chamber has stepped up to say, this is our responsibility. We're really good at building data systems, so we can help in a unique way to help the school system understand better a comprehensive picture of all their students who attend school within Knox County schools. So this is another example of, kind of a non-traditional partner stepping up to say, this is what we can do to help support teachers. People like the Compassion Coalition, a group of faith-based organizations in town, have started to encourage faith-based institutions to adopt one church within their local community. To say you need to be taking on mentoring as well as homework assistance for the schools. The University of Tennessee has spurred a full-service community school project where they have intensive University of Tennessee volunteers going in and helping with 5 inner-city schools here in Knoxville. What I'm trying to communicate is that everybody should be stepping up to realize what is their unique role within education. And if you want more information, you can feel free to contact the United Way at unitedwayknox.org, or give us a call at 865-523-9131, or you can email me at luterg at unitedwayknox.org. And I really appreciate your time, and thanks for letting me help focus on community.